Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Heart on Radio. This is your host, Shauna Ava, and I am so excited to welcome our delicious guest for this evening. Let me log him in right now. We have none other than Christopher LaPrath. And Christopher, can you hear me?
I can, Shauna. Can you hear me?
Oh, I hear you coming in. This is Mission Control coming in. Do you hear me?
It's amazing.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. I can't thank you enough for being here with us tonight. I am so excited. You personally just make me very giddy.
I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thank you, my love. I don't know if it's we're a couple hours away from each other. I don't know if you're getting some of this lightning and thunder that's beginning, but it's quite magical right now.
Well, it's always magical with you.
You know just what to say, don't you? Well, I am just honestly so honored and thrilled to have this hour to spend with you. I know that you have so much knowledge, so much. You've traveled. Your story is incredible, and what you do is incredible, and you're incredible. And I have been really lucky to be in your presence while you deliver your gifts. And you just, well, we're gonna get into that. I want to pause because the way I always start the show, Christopher, is I do 3 breaths, just so we can all kind of group and gather and get together. So would you join me on those 3 breaths, and then we're gonna jump in and have some fun.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. All right. Here goes. Okay. That feels really good.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no, I find it to be so necessary. And I have so much to say because I'm so excited that you're here. But as I was saying earlier is that one thing I really appreciate about you is your generosity of you. Yeah, I think of you as you're like tarot Santa Claus. You are so excited to read, and you are so, I can't wait for everyone to hear what you have to say and just your story in general. And that's what we'll open with, is a little bit about your background. But I just have to get that off of my chest because it's beautiful the way that you're so generous with your gift, and it's just this light that comes out of you that you want to share and deliver messages and help people. And it's just so exciting to see. And it's funny because that's your work, but it doesn't seem to be work for you. So anyway, it's a beautiful thing. I so appreciate that and love that about you. And so let's get started with a little bit about your background. You're an author, you're a coach, you're a healer, you do so many things. And where did all of this begin for you?
Well, it was a dark, stormy night in Sandpoint, Idaho in 1956 in a hospital. That's where it actually started. But I had a very normal upbringing, just like you, just like everybody listening, everybody out there. I had parents, my father, just like you guys did. My father used to chase us through the woods with shotguns, probably like your dad did.
Oh yeah, very bonding.
Yeah. And I lived in a haunted house in northern Idaho.
Oh my gosh.
Probably just like all of your houses, but
wow.
No, so from a really early age, I would see these beings, and they were angels, they were dark spirits, and one of my earliest memories, and I write about this in my book that I talk about, is I was walking by my living room window. We lived way in the northern woods of Idaho, out in the middle of nowhere. It was kind of boondocks. It was 20 miles from Sandpoint, Idaho. And it was night, and I saw, it was like a spotlight in the front yard, and I was about 6 years old, maybe 6, 7. There was like a spotlight in the front yard, and my grandfather was sitting there in a rocking chair. Now, my grandfather lived in Nebraska. And I'm like, I ran to my mom and I said, Mom, Grandpa's here. And she's like, go play. No, he's not. He's in Nebraska. And I was like, no, Mom. Well, about 5 minutes later, the phone rings, and it's my aunt from Nebraska. And my grandfather had died that night.
Oh, my gosh.
A couple of hours before. So the events of the house and my father, which I believe is really possessed, shut me down for many years. So I became a missionary.
Wow.
And I tried to go save others. In fact, I became a missionary and moved to the Republic of China to try to convert all the so-called pagan Buddhists. And I laughed.
Oh my God. That was really your work to go and convert Buddhists?
Yeah. I wanted to save all the Chinese people because I didn't know how to save myself, of course, right?
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that opened me up there, and I'll talk about it a little bit more maybe in the interview, is we have these, these constructs that we're all raised with, right?
Yeah.
And these constructs were good and they were fine for when we were little. I mean, these belief systems that probably saved us. But because the brain doesn't do time very well,
mm-hmm.
like what happened to us 20 years ago is like what is happening right now. The brain tends to repeat things.
Yes.
So people stick with these belief systems, and a lot of these belief systems aren't even theirs. So I adapted this certain religion's belief system, and I had very narrow neural pathways. So my roads, think of the brain being roads, I had very little wiggle room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I could go to the store and come back, and this is metaphorically speaking, right?
Right.
God loves you, Satan is evil, right? It's like, okay,
mm-hmm.
Soap is found in aisle 4 of Kmart. So I would go, right? I would go, I know where that is. I can't go to any more aisles. That's all I can handle. Well, when I was in this Republic of China, one of the other major events, we lived on the second floor of this church. And in the back of the church one day, they were going to build a Buddhist temple. So we were all gathered. There's like 5 or 6 of us at the upper window, and we're looking down on this construction scene. And there's a huge pile of stakes that they're going to use to lay out the foundation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then there's about 12 Buddhist priests, and their hoods, they look like Ku Klux Klan, but, it's a ceremonial dress for them. And then there was this huge man, about 400 pounds, that was in a G-string, okay? And he had this machete. He had this huge machete. Now, I'm watching this. I saw this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he took the machete, and he started to slit his wrist, and he slit his wrist from his wrist all the way to his underarm. And then he took just traded the machete hands, and he slit his other wrist all the way up through his arm, up to the underarm. Mm-hmm. Blood was everywhere, right? And he started shaking. And he walked over and he picked up these stakes and he started planting them. And within about 10 minutes, he had the entire foundation of the temple laid out. Shauna, he raised his arms. There was no cuts. There was no blood. Nothing.
Oh, my God.
Well, I could no longer go to aisle 4 in Kmart.
No.
I realized I'd become almost agoraphobic, right? I had become closed in my belief systems, and I had nowhere to put this.
Wow.
In my brain.
Yeah.
I couldn't process it. I know what my eyes had seen, but I couldn't process it. And so began my journey of eventually leaving that church and opening up to letting go of these influences, these belief systems.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is something that wasn't, because, you had mentioned earlier you saw your grandfather's, it was like an apparition. It was his spirit. This was something you saw in physical, concrete, like inexplainable terms, right?
Right. It wasn't a spirit. It was like
right.
it was like a physical form.
Right. So from there, okay, so that obviously it's tough to come back from that, but wow, here you are in the Republic of China and you've seen this and you realize it's like the walls come tumbling down of your quote unquote reality at that time. And then I know it sounds like then you started throwing yourself into all different types of studies with different religious masters or spiritual masters. Where does it go from there? Because you've had gifts all along. we can tell that from the story in your youth, but where did it evolve from there? Because you have and we'll get into this later, you have such a unique technique when you work with people. So I'm curious how that developed and where this story continues.
Well, I believe that we're all gifted.
Mm-hmm.
We all have these very, very unique gifts. There's no small reason for all these movies coming out about X-Men and superpowers and gifted people. I mean, television is becoming inundated with that, and to me, that's all messages of the clients that I've had the privilege, including yourself, of working with over the years, are really amazing. Yeah. I can't force people to see that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can tell them that they have really beautiful hair, and they'll look in the mirror and say, "Well, you know what? I'm fat." I went, "Okay, did you hear anything that I told you?"
Yes.
It's like a lot of the times people don't have the neural pathways to really grasp those things, and it's about letting go, and it's about those interferences that can get in our way. These interferences are these belief systems or these constructs. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was told when I joined the religion that the things I saw were from Satan, were from the devil. So I'm like, oh, hey, I don't want that. No. That, and so I made this construct that it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's not a matter of teaching. You can spend days and days with people telling people they have beautiful hair, but all they're really going to see is that they're fat. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So in clearing the interferences to go, okay, all right, so you're fat. Yeah. But did you notice a little bit about your hair? I mean, it kind of looks really good. Right? And then they're right? So that they can let go of the idea of being fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like opening up and asking the right questions. So I have to share a couple. Maybe some of you are listening. I hope you are. I won't mention any names, but I'll tell you the stories. Because this is a great example. A woman comes to me and she says, should I stay at my job? And I'm looking at her, and I'm like, well, you're pregnant. She goes, what? No, I'm not. And I go, yeah, you're pregnant. It's a little girl, and she's going to be premature. Like, she really wants to come through. And she's like, she got mad. She's like, well, here's your money. I'm out of here.
Wow.
Well, 7 months later, my phone rings. Okay. She says, Chris, I found you. I'm so thankful I found you. Yay. My whole family's here from Dallas. Come and do a reading. And I'm like, who is this? She's like, this is so-and-so, and you told me I was pregnant. And I said, oh, congratulations. She goes, no, you don't remember me. And I went, well, no, not really. No. She goes, you told me I was pregnant, and I had the baby 2 months early, and it was a little girl. So I ended up going to read for a family. But my point of telling you the story is, we think we're asking the right questions, right? Mm-hmm. Because the neural pathways in our brain are trained to ask a certain question in a certain way. Okay? And her question of the job wasn't really about her job. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
She ended up keeping her job. She's still with that company. It's been very, very good to her. But it was a way of rerouting her question, okay? Mm-hmm. That she had great insurance coverage, right, to have that baby. There were some problems because it was premature. So my point is to expand the brain, expand the possibilities.
Yeah. Well, that's so much of it. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is so much of what you do in your work. It's almost unusual. You're like, hey, look left, while you're like fixing something on the right. You're like, you even incorporate essential oils. So I'm just a fan. I'm a huge fan of tarot and decks, whether that be goddesses or gods or titans or whatever the deck is for you. I think I'm curious if that's something that you used in your journey of awakening, because it becomes something very tangible, like a place to point your focus, like a guide. You feel like you've got these guides with you every time you pull cards, and they give you more insight and answers. So how did that first introduce into your work and your life?
Well, I took a class at a metaphysical bookstore. Oh gosh. I don't know. 25 years ago, I guess. I don't know. And so to pass the course, the woman who was teaching the class went out to the store and just drug in random people. So this one guy came in, and everybody went, they took their turn, and finally it was my turn. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I should say this in front of all these people, Mm-hmm. The guy. So
you're meant to read him in front of the class. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I had to read him in front of all these other people, right?
Wow.
And I'm sitting there going, you know what? This isn't really ethical to do, because if I was in a private reading, I would tell him this information, but I didn't feel it was right? Yeah. So I made some crap up. Like, because I knew he wasn't really ready to, I just instinctively knew that he didn't have the neural pathways, especially in front of a group of people. I could probably do more damage than not. Mm-hmm. So the instructor afterwards pulled me aside. She goes, what were you holding back? I said, well, he's totally and completely gay. Right?
Oh my gosh, to deliver that in front of an audience.
Yeah, and well, I didn't share that. I just held back, and I go, I don't know.
I know, but good call there. It was a good judgment call.
Yeah. And that he'd been cheating on his boyfriend and blah, 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 right? And I'm like, I'm not even going to say that. And she looked at me and she goes, you're right on. And she goes, I respect you for not sharing that. So, there are some, people are afraid sometimes to have readings because, they think I've stacked all the cards with death cards.
I think of death card as a birth card. I don't know. I look at that as usually a good thing.
Right. And it really is, right? But most people see the death card and they think, oh my God, so that's where you have to be a little bit, diplomatic.
Good word.
As to what people are able to grasp.
Right. Yeah, they have to be able to, in a position to receive that properly, or it can really. Yeah. No, I know but the cards don't lie. I'm finding the more and more that I work with cards, I find it really strengthens your intuition and psychic abilities. I mean, I'm curious to ask you, do you find that most of the time you're almost telling people, with the exception of some surprises, like the pregnancy and things, but you're almost always telling people things they already know, they just, aren't ready to own up to or, really hear it yet. But do you see any commonality in that way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Some people are looking for confirmation.
Yes.
The thing is what I like to teach people is the majority of people out there are outwardly referenced, and God knows I was totally outwardly referenced for myself. I totally come from a space of understanding that, of what it's like to be outwardly referenced, right? I could not, for instance, I couldn't go to church enough to please God, right? Going to church was an outward action because I was so outwardly referenced, but I was so angry inside, but I knew God was about love, right?
Right.
So I couldn't, it was like this dichotomy in my brain, and am I making sense with that? Where it has to be, it takes time to build the neural pathways, right? I think of it like the phases of the moon. The moon symbolizes, a lot of psychic power, psychic ability. It's magical, right? In all kinds of folklore and even in our lives. But the moon goes through these phases. And we go through these phases in our life where we're building awareness. We're building these neural pathways, which is extremely powerful, right?
Yeah.
And to teach people to pay attention, not just to, you can use tarot cards, you can, use tea leaves, you can use a crystal ball, you can use a pile of rocks, you can use a song that comes on the radio, you can use a bumper sticker, a license plate. It's this expanding awareness of just letting go of what you think you know.
So how did you work on those? Because you're using the term neural pathways a lot. So I'm intrigued. I'm like, how does one clear those or cleanse those or open those, or I'm not sure the right term to use. I know what you're saying conceptually. And I feel like, so what, how did you work on that for yourself? Because it's like you were in this box, this cell almost that you locked yourself in to live by these rules and these regulations. And then it was 180. So how is that? Because gosh, I wish people, I need like a visual. I wish people could see exactly the way that you work with people. It's incredible what you do. You have essential oils, you have the deck with you, and then you also use the muscle technique. So how, does that all, are those all things that rebuild neural pathways or change them?
Right. So think of a baby crawling across the floor. Okay? You watch a baby crawling across the floor, their brain is developing at an incredibly rapid pace. Mm-hmm. But they do it by doing these crossover motions. Okay? So their right hand goes in front of their left side. Their left hand goes in front of their right side. Their right knee goes on the left side. The left knee goes on the right side, right? Well, that all helps to build the pathways across the left and right brain hemisphere. So you have this nerve fiber running along your skull that separates left and right brain hemisphere. It's called the corpus callosum. Okay. And basically, when you're doing those motions, you're helping to integrate the brain. So even they call it a cross crawl. I'm certified in brain gyms. From years ago, it's BRAINGYMS. You can Google it and find the simple exercises that talks about that help to build the neural pathways. But also, that's why I appreciated you, Shauna, to do the deep breathing, because they found that the breathing changes emotions instantly. So think about when you're really excited. You're like, you're really nervous. And you're breathing like this. I know it sounds really weird, but you have this shallow breathing, fast, shallow breathing, right? When you're excited or you're running or whatever. But when you're in that deep meditation and it gets you in this certain frame of mind, is exactly what you started the program off with, was 3 slow, deep breaths, right? That helps to control your thinking and make you more aware.
Okay. That's so yummy. I truly saw the proof of breathing, the power of breathing on a spiritual cruise I went on. Yes, it's this really awesome thing. It's like spiritual workshops. It's all different topics and things. And long story short, I was in a class and this woman, she had us all stand up. And this might be something people, if I can author this well, it might be something people can try right now or when they're listening to this. But we stood up. She said, okay, put your arms straight out to the sides and you're like in a T position, right? And she said, take your right arm and just swing yourself, as far as you can behind you and find a spot on the wall that matches up with, wherever your hand is pointing. What's the furthest you can do? So we do that and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I found a little spot. Then she has us do these 3 deep breaths, like an inhale and a real push it out exhale. And then she has us come back into the T position. We swing around and my arm went I needed a whole new wall. I was almost like 360, like back around. I was able to twist so much more. My muscles or whatever it was had relaxed to such a high degree that I was like pointing to a different wall at that point. So that for me was like so profound.
Right.
And and I think that's so much the power of yoga too, is you are breathing. So it's like you're putting my neural pathways together, baby. Because I'm like, this is like you're doing the yoga. You're in these positions, and when you're breathing through it, it feels like a handshake from the left side to the right side of the brain, and they're like handshake, and they're like, all right, like
exactly
things are
right.
Clearer now.
Well, it tends to change your space. It changes your relationship to the space, to the universe. Mm-hmm. And so if you take a deep breath, okay, speaking of breath, you're breathing in 10 to the 22nd power of atoms.
Wow.
That's enough atoms to be 1 million atoms from everything and everyone that has ever lived or is living. Okay? Mm-hmm. So with every breath I take down here in Phoenix, I'm breathing in a million atoms from you, Shauna. Or from the rabbit that lived in Russia 10,000 years ago, right? or Cleopatra, or Jesus Christ. It's 1 million atoms with every breath. And that comes from research, and I'm sure those listeners have heard of Deepak Chopra. He wrote that in his book called Perfect Health. Okay, I want to give him credit for that. That we're all connected, right? And it's a matter of tuning in. So I liken it to a computer. So when I do a reading, I just had more practice at my keyboard. Okay, so you're doing a search on Google. I type in SHAUNA Eva. Nothing comes up. Okay, because I put the U in there. It's actually Shauna Eva, right? So I have to put in SHANA EVA. But if somebody puts in SHAUNA, they may not realize it, and your name's not going to come up in a Google. Okay? So it just takes a little bit of practice to use the keyboard. The universe is like the internet. And because people, let's say, are outwardly referenced. Let's say, Shauna, you're always looking for approval from your mother or your father or
I was like, how did I feel that coming?
Right? Okay, so if you're always looking for approval, then what happens when you get disapproval? So it blows your circuits, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes you try harder to get that approval from the outside, right? And the harder you try, the more frustrated you get, the angrier you get, which has been in the past my story. I know exactly what that's like. And so it's about being inwardly referenced. Journey of, for instance, people might be listening about, well, I don't have my soulmate, I don't have my true love. But if they're outwardly looking for that, right? And it's not within themselves, all they're going to get is a reflection back of that non-self-love.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh. It makes a little too much sense. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. So, and I think we all have, it wasn't until I really figured that out and told the universe like a flat, no, nothing but all of these things on my, it was really a journey of self-love and realizing I deserve X, Y, and Z, and I'm not, getting involved with anything until that's what's delivered, that things really changed for me. So I guess I worked on my neural pathways in that moment.
Right, and that's growth. That's expansion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
I love what you were. Sorry. Continue. I was just saying I love what you were saying about the breath earlier too, because I really do feel like I can tune into a past, future, present. What you're saying makes so much sense in the past, future, present timeline now. It's like it's all existing and it's at the same time. So you have the ability to, you can tap into that past timeline and change it or redirect it or rewrite it however you want, because it's all existing right now. It's just like you mentioned with the breath, that really resonates for me.
Well, it's like my son says. He always asks, "Where's your breath?" And if you don't remember anything else about tonight's talk, just ask yourself, where's my breath? Right.
Yes. But it's so tied into the now.
Right.
It just puts you right in your body.
Right. And it ties you in with those 10 to the 22nd power of atoms. With every breath that you take, right? It connects you. And so that's with the readings. there are messages all the time. But it's just pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Now you see, how are messages delivered to you? I've seen you work and you almost start to pace. And I'm curious, do you see things, do you hear things, or is it more of a feeling?
Oy vey, yes, and yes. It's different with every person, right?
Ooh.
I got on a plane one time from Florida to come to Phoenix, and I was exhausted. I mean, I just had a grueling trip, and I sat in the aisle seat, and this beautiful woman around in her 20s comes and sits by the window. And I'm like, okay, all I want to do is sleep, right? Because she had to excuse herself to come in to get to the window seat. So I, let her in. She sat down. Shauna, this old woman was standing beside me in the aisle, yelling at me. She's like, tell her to lose that guy. Tell her to lose that guy.
What?
And I'm like, oh my God. So finally I turned to this young woman and I said, excuse me, my name is Chris LaPrath, and your grandmother's here. She needs me to relay a message to you. Believe me, I'm just a messenger, but I'm supposed to tell you to lose that guy. I don't know what that means. Message delivered. Well, the girl into tears.
Oh
she
my
said,
God.
I said a prayer this morning before I got on the plane to give me an unequivocal sign that I should break up with my boyfriend or not of 3 years. They were engaged for 3 years, and it wasn't really going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So then she introduced me to one of her best friends, and they're all very high-level executives in the corporate world. I won't mention their names or the companies they work for. But her friend flew out from the East Coast and took me to dinner. And he took me to an Italian restaurant. And I'm like, oh, crap. They had a band. They had a live band. And he was from, South Carolina. Anyway, the band started playing, and they're playing New York, New York. So this is an example of you don't have to have the cards, okay?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of paying attention to what's going on. And it was this surreal moment where New York, New York was playing on this Italian restaurant. And I'm like, okay. And it came up with his dad. I said, there's something in New York. I didn't know that he was raised in New York, right? But his dad had declared bankruptcy when this man was 8 years old and had taken his son to the bank with him and saw his dad having to declare bankruptcy in front of all these hooty-tooty bankers, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then his grandmother came through, and he had been taking care of his grandmother in Carolina, and she was, of course, from New York. And that came up, and he was, on the verge of tears because he'd always felt guilty that he couldn't spend enough time with his grandmother because his job took up so much of his time. And she definitely came through and kicked his ass and said, sorry if I'm on the radio, kicked his butt. and said, don't worry about that. You did great. I was really happy. But he carried that guilt with not being able to take care of her. So when these feelings come over you, trust your gut. You have actually more neuropeptides in your gut than you do your brain.
Yes, that was something I read as well. It's your gut it's like a brain, but even with more. It's like Well, that's where the term gut instincts comes from, right? Yeah.
It's like if you hear the term trust your gut, it's like that gut feeling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But because of the way so many people are raised, my trust issues were blown, and it took me a while to let go. And that's the whole thing with one of the things with my readings is people don't need like more information. Okay. for instance, I went to the UFO conference here. It's one of the largest in the world in Fountain Hills in Arizona. Well, I'm walking through there and I'm like, okay, so there are alien bases on the moon. What the fire truck does that have to do with me? like how is that going to help me or not help me? Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's interesting to know. It's interesting to know, but how does that actually affect my daily life and my personal growth and all of that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of clearing your own personal interferences. And most people out there it's like they have the metaphorical radio on and the television on and the stereo on and the computer on, and they're in overload with so much information because they think that they need more information when in actuality they just need to let go, right? And be aware of where these belief systems came from. So that's an example of clearing the interferences.
Yeah, no, that is so spot on. And that's why I'm curious, as your journey took place, it sounds like you took classes and you studied with people, but what was, if you could pinpoint it, what was really something that you practiced and you continued to practice that reopened those gifts for you?
I was listening to something today. It said, get out of your fear. And one way to do that is when you get on an elevator, don't turn around and face the door. Just face the back. Right? And other people in the elevator are going to think you're bonkers. But it's one simple thing of getting out of your comfort zone, right? I love that.
Yes.
Or it's a matter of, you're at the grocery store and you're standing in line, start singing aloud. Just start singing, right?
So, yes.
And you'll get some funny stares, but I just
you may
let
get a
go.
couple dollars too. You never know if you're good,
Right. But it's like it happens. Like I'm at a restaurant, right?
Yes.
My son and I are at this restaurant, and the waitress comes up, and I'm like, your sister's here, and you need to play with Barbie dolls. And she burst into tears. She was like, oh my God. Her sister had died, and they used to play with Barbie dolls all the time, and life had become so serious for her that she forgot to play. And that was her whole message from her sister is, what are you doing waitressing? There's nothing wrong with waitressing. I think it's great if it fits somebody. But she wanted to go. She goes, remember when you used to dress up Barbie dolls and all the time you'd spend on their hair? That's what she wanted to do, is cosmology. She wanted to go and do cosmology.
Wow.
So these things, we're all gifted. We all have these real moments. And I've been with you enough, Shauna. I know. You're off the scale.
Honey, don't make me blush over the phone here.
No, it's true. And and I know some of the people I've had the privilege of working with are listening tonight, and they're just if I could give them any message, it's you're unicorns. You're unique you're extremely unique. There's never going to be another person like you on earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
There never has been another person like you on earth. You've got these gifts, and so step into it. I heard something today. Try tonight, if you can, write your own obituary.
Oh.
And so you start from the end and go backwards, right? So do you want to write, this is Shauna Eva worked for Acme Corporation for 40 years in the
she had really great health insurance.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
No.
So it helps to write it really helps to write your obituary because eventually we're all literally going to get that death card, right?
Yeah.
None of us are getting out of here alive. And so, I mean, that's the point is the spirit also has, the other thing I wanted to convey tonight, they have an incredible sense of humor, right?
Yes.
There's some funny stuff.
Well, that makes sense because if you deliver messages from spirit, which you do, you're hilarious. So they must be telling you funny things.
Well, they are. You know, it's like lighten up, right?
Yes.
If I could just convey, it's okay, breathe and lighten up.
Breathe and laugh.
Because this too is going to pass.
Yeah. So are you saying that you did a lot of things that scared you? And is that something that helped you further awaken your gifts? Oh.
Right. So like talking to the waitress, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are afraid of being wrong or looking foolish. That's why you go into an elevator and you stand facing the back. Just see what happens.
Just like in the corner, like you're in timeout.
Yeah, exactly. Just face the back, or you know, sing in a grocery store. Just start singing. And
yeah.
So and it's infectious, right?
Yes.
People on some level begin to get it.
Wow. That is so fascinating, Chris, because I did that unwittingly several years ago. When I would say it was my real first adult awakening, because I was raised in metaphysics, so none of this was unusual to me. But to have your own personal awakening, that happened for me, I don't know how many years ago now, but some while back. And that was a year that I decided to do everything that scared me, including bungee jumping. I did go bungee jumping. Anything that freaked me out, I felt compelled to do. And it was so activating for me. So you are spot on. What did you do that scared you? I'm really curious. Do you have anything that you specifically remember?
Okay, I'll give you an example. I'll try not to get choked up about this, right?
Oh, okay.
So I did not own my own house till I was 58 years old. Okay?
Wow.
So I lived in rentals. I was a missionary in China. We lived on $25 a month.
Jeez.
And it wasn't until I was in my 50s I got the correlation. Because I was raised in a haunted house, right? I was afraid of having a house of my own.
Oh. Wow.
Because of those fears of being in a haunted house that my family owned. So it took years and years. My teachers that I talk about in my book are still amazing. They said, you can either get it now or you can get it later. It's better to get it now, right?
Yes.
So one of the things with readers is if you're developing this gift, whatever it is, you know, whether it's astrology or whether it's tarot or whatever, okay, you name it, is this fear of being wrong. Okay. So I'm still in the corporate world. I worked at a major university. I went in one day to my boss and I said to her, okay, you're going to get this new promotion. She goes, what? Well, 20 people were up for this promotion. I said, well, you're going to get it. A week later, she comes in, and I said, did you get it? She goes, no, I didn't get it. This other guy got it. I said, no. I said, you're going to get it. She goes, Chris, it's okay to be wrong. And I go, okay, lady, listen to me. I'm not wrong. It's not me that's wrong. or right or wrong. It's not about right or wrong. It's spirit. You're going to get this job. The next day, that person quit and she got that position.
Whoa.
Now, this woman was totally left brain, right? Like, and it opened up, she's like, oh my God. And so she's been one of my clients for many years now, many years. And she's a total believer. And her mom passed away. This is a great story. So her mom passes away. She goes, Chris, can you come over? I'm really bad. It was really sad, right?
Yeah.
So on my way over there, her mom's telling me to call her and say, listen, I'm hanging out in the corner chair watching over the kids. It's the chair I always sat in. Now, I had never been to her house. So I called this woman and I said, your mom is telling me that she's sitting in that chair where she always held the babies and she's watching over the house. Well, I get to the house 5 minutes later and the woman is crying and all she could do, she couldn't even talk. She just pointed toward the chair and it was in the corner. It was where her mother always sat. So here was a totally corporate left brain woman, right? Had all the facts and figures, extremely intelligent, brilliant woman, but needed a little bit of that right side of the brain opened up.
Yeah. She had those neural pathways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now that she could
accept,
now that she could accept that was a possibility, that there are things that are maybe not seen, but they do exist. Now she's able to receive those messages.
Yes.
Wow.
So we don't go outside, Shauna, and we don't say, come on, moon, get full. Come on, get full. Hurry up. That's ridiculous to us, right?
Yeah.
But then why do we do that the whole time with our lives? Right? How come we're not there? How come my life isn't more full? Well, we're getting there.
Wow.
Right?
That is, yeah. You use, I want to know more about the essential oils that you use in tandem with your readings.
Well, so the essential oils affect the limbic system. Okay?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to name any specific brands or anything like that, but
I love you. You're like, I'm not sponsored by these people. I'm not just going to go ahead and name
That's right. I'm not going to mention that. But so the olfactory bulb, right, the thing that does your smeller, the nose, is part of the limbic system in the brain. And the limbic system controls memory and emotions. Right? So people can smell pipe tobacco and remember their grandfather, right? This bright picture of their grandfather comes up just from the smell, or lavender sachet, from their mother's pillows.
Yeah.
You smell the lavender and this memory comes flooding back because it's part of that limbic system. So the essential oils, are very, very therapeutic because our sense of smell is, they estimated is 10,000 times even stronger than our other senses. It's a survival mode. It's an evolutionary survival mode. When you go to the fridge and you open it up and you have a container that you're not sure what's in there, the first thing you do is take off the lid, and what do? Smell it. Right?
Yes.
Right. So your nose knows. And so it's a matter of just trusting and honing all of these senses, right? And some people, if you're listening, some people are auditory learners. You all know this. Auditory learners, visual learners, kinesthetic learners. So we all learn differently. But we're all capable of learning in all different ways. Yeah. But we're all taught to try to color in the lines, and we were not born to color in the lines.
Absolutely. I love that. I can't believe we're almost out of time here. And I pulled a card for this week's episode, and I just wanted to read a little bit about it, and then if there's anything you'd like to add to it, please feel free. But This week we have the Queen of Swords, and this I pulled from the Thoth deck, but the Queen is larger than life, emanating power and clarity. She has razor-sharp ability to get to the heart of a matter and sees with to get to the heart of a matter and sees what is. Oh, I guess it's a typo. No wonder I couldn't to get to the word. See what is, rather than what others wish her to see. This card represents leadership and empowerment. And the severed head in her hand may indicate a need to cut away all that holds you back and inhibits you. In this way, it demonstrates determination and strength of will. It also points to crystal clear, rational, and intellectual thinking, and is someone who is open to new ideas. Which I just find, I love this card so much after this solar eclipse that we've had, because it does feel like just divine clarity moving forward is what you need. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I was like, these cards just jump out now. I mean, they're like, it's a joke. I'm always giggling. But do you have anything to add?
Exactly, right?
Yeah. Do you have anything to add with the Queen of Swords? Is there anything that you specifically feel or that represents for you?
Well, it's about clearing interferences, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Swords are very symbolic of thoughts, okay? So thoughts can cut through the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, swords can be turned inwardly and beat a person up, right? Stabbing yourself all over with great many pains.
Right.
So it's using the swords and being able to clear interferences.
Yeah.
So if I could just leave everybody with one thing, when you start thinking negative or derogatory thoughts or whatever, just ask yourself, where is this coming from? Because I'm a naturally happy person, right?
Yeah.
I was born a baby. I used to laugh a lot. I'm a naturally happy person. Where is this coming from? Okay? So it's really the law of resonance. You can walk into a room. So if you have a violin in one corner of the room and a violin in another corner of the room, it's the law of resonance. Look it up on Google. You strike a chord on the violin in the corner, the other violin starts to play the same chord without being touched. Resonance. So if you ask yourself, where is this coming from? You become more aware of even your psychic ability and what you're picking up. You could be picking up on a person across the room whose dog just died, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or who just had a major breakup, or who broke their big toe. I don't know, okay? But you could be picking up on that and just becoming aware of, are these really your thoughts?
Yes.
And then be free of judgment about that person, but just be aware of where it's coming from, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's like somebody, what most people do, and I'll end with this, I know it's kind of crude, but it's like walking into a room and somebody passed gas, okay? Metaphorically, people are thinking that they're the ones that pass the gas, but it's that other person.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it's a very visual explanation, yes.
Okay, right.
And the nose
Those
knows.
are like thoughts. Right. So people think it's their thoughts, but it's not their thoughts. So these spirits, even the other thing I wanted to say is there's 7 billion people alive here on this earth around that, right? But 107 billion people have ever lived. So for every living person, there's 15 dead guys on the other side. So there are these spirit influences that can affect us. So if we're aware, well, where are these thoughts coming from? Is it coming from Dave? Is it coming from Bill? Is it coming from Sally? No. Okay, where else could this be coming from? Oh, my dead grandpa? Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Mm.
I know I'm simplifying it a little bit, but does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. I want to thank you so much because I love your explanations. That's what I feel you're so good at, is you put things in terms that we can understand and laugh at. But it's so valid, and we are really receivers. So there can be tons of things coming in and projected that aren't really ours, and we take them on as ours, and we're locked into that. And so I think that's a really beautiful message. Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, I love you dearly.
I love you dearly, and I love Kenan dearly, your handsome, wonderful son. And again, I want to thank you so much for spending this hour with us and the listeners here and everything that you've shared. And you guys all need to get out there and pick up Trestle Creek, Things the Dead Fear, because it is such a fun read, and it's a true story. And I know it's won an award. I mean, it's just an incredible book. And then also visit innerexpedition.com, which is a fabulous name, by the way. Love that name.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well,
all right.
My love and blessings to you and everyone out there listening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Heart On Radio. Thank you, my love.